So I was watching this no thank you video, which is a response to my video about education and the reforms I would make to it. And just real quick, I want to mention that one of the policy proposals I forgot to bring up in that video is smaller classroom sizes. I think that classrooms are way too big right now, and it makes it more difficult to teachers to attend to individual students' needs. So I would take classrooms that are, for example, 30 or 40 students, and I would make them like 12 to 18. Um, I think classrooms need to be significantly smaller. Um, in addition to that, I wanted to talk about a very specific point that he made about sleep deprivation, um, in the context of a point I made about needing to address the disparities in food quality. He said, if we're going to, browbeat and moralize so much over the quality of food, why would we not also address this very brutal culture surrounding sleep um, in schools, where children are developing, um, obviously, at a pretty fast rate, and that requires a certain amount of sleep in order to not stifle their development. And he referred to it as, I think, brutal and torturous, and that future societies would look back on this as a primitive practice. And I agree with him on this. I can't believe I did not remember to bring it up in the original video, because I find it to be kind of integral to all of the arguments that I was making. And I want to address another point that he made about the 4-day work week here in a moment, but hold your horses. Um, yeah, school should be starting much later. Kids should not be waking up at 5:30 in the morning as I had to growing up. Um, they should be heading into school, you know, somewhere closer to like 10 or perhaps even 11 a.m. so that they can get, 10 or for younger kids, even 12 hours of sleep. Um, the fact that they're being sleep deprived to the extent that they are is hugely detrimental to their brain development. And this is something I can personally attest to, because when I went to school growing up, you know, even if I went to sleep at like 8 p.m., having to wake up at 5 a.m., 5:30 in the morning, it never felt like I got enough sleep. But it was like, I would never actually go to sleep at 8 p.m. because I would have gotten home at 4, and you're gonna tell me, sometimes like 4:30. Actually, most of the time it was like 4:30, and you're gonna tell me that when I get home at 4:30, I have to go to sleep in 3.5 hours, and that's not even anything. That's not even saying anything about homework as well. Like, I would have all of this homework from every single class of mine that I would have to spend, an hour and a half on, and then I'd be going to sleep like an hour, 2 hours later. It's just ludicrous and absurd. Which is, by the way, why we shouldn't have homework in the first place. That was a glaring omission and pretty core to my philosophy about education that I cannot believe I forgot to mention in the initial video. But um, yeah, I mean, you don't take work home with you most of the time in most fields. Why the fuck would you take homework with you? Uh, it doesn't make any sense. And all of that is work that could be done in the classroom. And there are countries that do not have homework today that are doing a hell of a lot better uh, in in their indicators on education than in the United States. So why do we have it? You know. Um, so that's one thing. Um, but again, like, I want to attest to this point about of the school needing to start at a later hour to give those kids more sleep, because it's really a crucial thing. Like, There were days when, because I felt as though just how much time I spent at school was like taking away from all of my hobbies, anything fun or fulfilling, or even just social interaction I wanted to have. Um, I would stay up. Like, I straight up would not sleep, because the way I saw it was I would get home, and if I wanted to socially interact at all, that would be all of my free time. And I didn't want to have to divvy up, social interaction versus time spent on my hobbies. I wanted to be able to do both. So there were a lot of times growing up when I straight up would not sleep before I would go to school. Like, I would just stay awake for days, um, and it wasn't good, you know. Um, and I think starting the school later would be an easy fix to this problem. In addition to that, um, I think we need a 3-day weekend for kids. Like, if we cut down on the vacation time, as I suggested in my initial video, that's time that could easily be made up for with a 3-day weekend. And it would give them more time to recuperate between weekdays, more time to spend on social interaction and gainful, fulfilling activities, without necessarily giving you these huge gaps, between when you're on vacation and when you're at school. I know when I had those long vacations growing up from school, I would come back every single year. I would come back like forgetting almost everything I learned the prior year. And so I think taking that time and um, more evenly distributing it through a 3-day weekend is a great solution. Um, but yeah, sleep deprivation was like something that terrorized me as a kid. Like, I remember, I remember getting scolded like fairly regularly for my performance in the classroom, or for being asleep in the classroom, or not being able to pay attention. And it's like, of course I'm not able to pay attention when, I feel like all of my free time is being taken away from me. Um, and the little bit of free time that I have is either spent on recovering from, you know, uh, having had to go to school all day, or, on the little bit of fun that I got to have during the day. Um, like, of course, I'm tired when, you're going to have me get up that early in the morning. Of course, I wouldn't be able to focus. So I think this is a real problem. And when I look back on my time in school, it's like probably the most prominent thing I can remember is sleep deprivation, because my record for how long I had been awake at one time, um, going to school, was 4 days straight. In middle school, I had been consistently going the whole week, awake for 4 days straight. And um, that's not something I look back on fondly. So um, yeah, no, we need to be giving kids more hours to sleep. We need to be making that weekend a day longer. And this isn't even a radical idea. Like, the state of Oklahoma, which I lived there in 2018. Um, at least in Shawnee, the city where I lived at the time in, they literally did that. That was literally the system that they had in Shawnee. Was Friday was one of the weekend days. Now, in their case, they did it because schools were notoriously underfunded across the state. It's actually really tragic, the the quality and state of Oklahoma schools. But that's another issue entirely. When I was about to go to high school there, that was one of the first things that was brought up to me was they had a 3-day weekend. So it's not like this is something that hasn't even been tried. You don't even have to look to experiments with 4-day work weeks in the workplace, being done in Spain or the UK or what have you. You know, as far as school is concerned, this is something that has literally been tried, albeit in different circumstances than the one I would like to see. So yeah, um, we need to be doing something about sleep deprivation. Now I know No Thank You made a much longer video about a much wider range of topics than that, but that was something that particularly stuck out to me as I was watching it, because it's something that particularly sticks out in my memory of education on the whole.